Okay, let's get it going. I'll call to order the General Purposes Committee meeting, Monday, July 15th. Motion on the minutes? All those in favor, votes carried. Community Excellence Awards Program. Jason, anything to add? Okay, someone want to move her? Moved and seconded. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor, votes carried. Thank you. Then we have a response to recommendations on the first accessible British Columbia Act standards. Melanie, anything to add to your report?
No, staff have nothing further to add to the report and are happy to answer any questions.
When do you think they're going to get to a final, program?
Yeah, to your worship, at this time, the province hasn't released any final deadlines when we may see standards introduced. The next steps will be releasing the What We Heard report in 2025. From discussions with provincial staff, it will depend on election results, if there's new ministers. So it'll still be a bit of time before we see anything introduced into regulation.
Well, they're obviously in no hurry. All right, someone want to move it? Moved and seconded, discussion. All those in favor, votes carried. Thank you. So we got the Workyard Replacement Project, design parameters, guiding principles, Ben Diaz, Martin Yanis. Anything to add to your report, guys?
To the chair, we have nothing to add, but we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any comments? Bill?
Yeah, thank you.
Just, sorry, just a minute. Let me turn this on.
No problem.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks very much for the report. I appreciate everything that's there and the guiding principles. Can we have a monthly report on the status of as we go along?
Through the chair to Council McNulty, should council direct us to provide a report, we will be more than happy to.
Okay, well, as council direct you, well, we'll see whether council will direct you. And can we have a financial report on a monthly basis as we're going along? I guess as council directs you, well, your worship, I would ask, I would move a motion that we get both on a monthly basis on it. I'm sorry, but it's too big a project, and I think we need to be fiscally responsible and openly given the timing of what's going on. And staff can come back with all the rebuttal they want, but you don't. See, I knew exactly that was going to happen. I knew it. Thanks, man. I'm not finished.
Well,
I'm
okay.
glad staff stand up right now while I'm still talking. I guess I said something that I wasn't supposed to. Anyhow, I'd like to make that motion that we get a monthly report financially and a status report on the workshop.
What I was about to say is I don't really think, I think staff can just take it as direction.
I'm not willing to accept that. I want in the minutes because we won't get it otherwise.
Okay, but we can put the direction in the minutes. If you want to make,
I've just moved the motion, obviously no
well,
seconder.
no, just to hold it a sec. We're going to get the main motion on the floor in due course, and then that will be an addition to.
Okay, I'll accept that. Thanks very much for your report.
John Irving, you have something to say on that point?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing really to add. We can certainly do that. At this stage of the project, certainly on a monthly basis, you likely wouldn't see any change in the information. We are planning to bring forward in the fall to you the programming options for phase one. So that will be the next critical stage. Between now and then, we can certainly provide monthly updates if council so directs, or we can take that under direction. But you won't really see much change at this stage in the project month to month.
Well, my comment is I'd like to follow it along. Thank you.
Well, yeah, if there's nothing much to report, then one
us a
line
memo.
report or something. Okay,
Thank you.
Counselor, who's Counselor 3? Counselor Wolf.
Thank you. Your worship, I'll first ask staff a question related to that last point. We used to get, a couple of years ago, quarterly capital project updates as a memo. And then I don't know if we're getting them as regular anymore. Is that still a plan?
Don't we get that as part of finance committee?
Mr. Chair, that's correct. Yes, we used to do the quarterly update, but now we've rolled all that information into the quarterly finance report.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. Back to my other planned comments. I appreciate the retainment of trees and the berms along the perimeter, and the reasoning for it is spot on in the report. And in addition to that, I just had a question specifically about on our page 75, it uses the phrase operational areas, and that those are the ones that would be targeted to be raised to the 4.7 meters. And in here, it doesn't, I know we're not that far yet, but like, are we talking about half of the full city space there is going to be considered operational, or more or less than 50%?
Through the chair to Councilor Wolf, we will be looking during design development at what areas we can and cannot or will or not raise. When we say operational areas, they are the occupied areas in the yard. We will be looking in detailed design about the flood elevation and what makes sense at what stage. But all of the buildings that are post-disaster will be above that flood elevation.
Okay, thanks. Then just to follow up on that, then, Your Worship, I know as we go, there's going to be surveillance on the chemical makeup of what's underground in case there's the chemical plant effluent discovered. Would it be better to not raise that space up to 4.7, or would that be a benefit because then it's capped and it's much thicker on top?
Through the chair to Councilor Wolf, we have done an initial environmental assessment. When we do the detailed environmental assessment, which is going to start underway very soon, we will have a more definitive answer for you. At this stage, we do not know what the level of contamination is, and until that time, we cannot make a decision on burying it or excavating and removing it.
Okay, just final comment then, or follow-up. On our page 73, it shows that the project stages. Where would that stage come in, the environmental assessment? When would that be completed in here?
Through the chair to Councilor Wolf, the area that is in question is not in the phase 1 work. It will be done during advanced planning and during the concept design. We will be looking into it.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's see. Councilor Day.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the report. GP 80, we've got the guiding principles, and that's really all we're approving today, correct?
Through the chair to Councilor Day, it is the guiding principles and the design parameters as well.
Okay, so I love under innovative, it says design innovative. I think that is really, really important. We need to think way outside the box on this, and I would like to see us build up as opposed to out, which gives us more options for the balance of the property. And like, for instance, Richmond Center Mall has got this massive underground parking lot, and then everything else is built up above. So is there, I know we have to be ready for post-disaster level at 4.7 meters, but is there sort of less essential things that we can put at level?
Through the chair to Councilor Day, we are considering that as part of our programming and working with our consultants. We will look at the areas and we will come back to council for a complete detail in the fall about the program and the elevations that we are choosing at what areas.
Okay, and will this plan include the school board property?
Through the chair to Councilor Day, no, it is not part of the project scope.
So then they're not at all interested in upgrading at the same time, taking advantage?
I am unaware of them wanting to do anything at their site at this moment.
Well, I think during the engagement process, there'll be conversations with the school board.
Through the chair to Councilor Day, we have engaged with the school board on several occasions, and the staff have given them continuous updates. And once we start programming again, definitely we'll be reaching out to them.
Okay, well, it's be interesting to see if we can collaborate a little bit because it's a great opportunity for both them and for us. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair. A few comments with respect to this, and I know the motion's not on the floor. There's a motion coming up from Councillor McNulty. I'm hoping that I'm definitely going to support. I certainly like the guiding principles of it. As you know, this is just a piece of paper with words on it right now, and we certainly need to follow these guiding principles as we go forward on this. this is the largest infrastructure project, I believe, in Richmond's history, or will be, over this process of trying to put it in place. You know, at the end of the day, we don't know if this is going to be at least $500 million or even more. We've had that discussion here on accountability just a couple of weeks ago on what we need to do, and I'm certainly looking forward to the referral report that will be coming back with respect to that. And I think this is just an added link that Councillor McNulty is proposing here. And I think we need to have a standing monthly report. I don't care if it says the same thing that it said the previous month. We need to have that standing report that not only talks about how you're implementing everything in our multi-pronged project over the next 10 years and following these guiding principles, and you will be called out, I'm sure, by others if it's not followed. The other one, the standing report, and whether Mr. Irving agrees with me or not, has to separate the financial part. Our finance officer does come back and gives us a monthly briefing on where we are in it. I'd like to see that separated out, and so we financially have a different document that shows where we are as far as the finances go in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, that's really the process we used when we were building the Oval. We would have regular reports. They would talk about the finances. They would talk about the engineering, everything. So we're no stranger to this process. The one thing I want to add, reference has been made to page 80, the guiding principles. Under innovative design, innovative functional spaces that meet current and future operational needs. I want to add in there that cost effectively meet current and future operational needs, okay? So we can incorporate that into the eventual resolution if everybody's agreed, but the reason for that is obvious. Okay, we've got Councillor Glanders.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick question about phasing. When will we see what the next phase is going to be, or what you want it to be? I just don't remember seeing that section being where phase 1 was. I don't know if I missed that, but just want to know when phase 2, where you think phase 2 is going to take place.
Through the chair to Councillor Gillanders, we are working with our architectural team, and we'll be back to council in the fall with a complete breakdown of the phases and the program itself.
Great, thanks.
All right. So to incorporate the suggestions that have been made to add to the recommendation, recommendation 1, I think, would stay the same. The design parameters are approved. Number 2, guiding principles as described, be approved with the addition of the word cost effectively under innovative on page 80. And thirdly, that staff be directed to provide a monthly progress report outlining the status of the initiative and including financial updates. Okay, is that what we want? Okay, someone move it? Moved and seconded. Any further discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Zero carbon step code and energy step code. Andy, that's your motion. Andy? Oh, there you go.
Thanks, and through the chair. Well, in addition to what was provided in the agenda, this is a conversation that many of us have been having in the community with different people and different stakeholders. So just to be clear, reducing greenhouse gases in the community and the reliance on fossil fuels is something I think everybody believes in, and something that we're moving towards, increasingly clean energy, renewable energy. That is still remains a goal. And the province's Clean BC Roadmap to 2030 has a timeline, including the step codes and including stringent emissions requirements for new buildings. So in essence, what this motion is about is having staff report back to us on options that would include adhering to the province's current timeline and step codes, because they're not that far away, 2030 and 2032, and getting ahead of them too far and getting out over our skis, so to speak, on this issue might not be in our best interest, considering you could see adjustments made to the province's own timeline. And there are practical issues when it comes to building that are involved in this. There also are affordability issues when you speak to people. And you can have debates about gigawatts and gigajoules, but, and it can get very confusing. But there are real affordability issues that apply here and some real practical issues that apply to building. So what this asks is for staff to come back, I think it would be as early as possible, which would be September, and report back to us with options. And the view would be to comply with the provincial government's fairly stringent requirements and timelines that already exist. Thank you.
Do you want to move your motion then?
Yeah.
So moved and seconded. Councilor McNulty.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to ask Steph a couple of questions if I could. Before we go ahead, we're looking for options. Where do we stand with regard to the province's mandate now? Are we not already at step 3, 4?
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty. It depends on the type of building. A larger building, part 3, we're at step 2 and step 3. Smaller buildings, so part 9, we have 3 options available. If it's energy, step 3, 4, and 5, builders can choose. And correspondingly, the zero carbon step code meshes in with those choices as well.
Wouldn't it be, just a thought, wouldn't it be more realistic to adopt the province's mandates now? Have we not, and put them into effect as a look for options? We're just passing the buck and waiting. If we direct staff to put the province's 2030 program in now, are we ahead of the game?
Through the chair, the current timeline is ahead of the game, if you will. So the rationale when it came forward was to be in advance of the provincial standards or their timelines, if you will. More to give builders the time and capacity to build to those standards. It's a pretty significant change that the building sector is undergoing with these changes. So the intention of coming ahead of the province was more about really giving them a runway or a run out, if you will, to be in compliance fully by 2030.
My next question to go this way, is it worthwhile us giving input into the province to their program to know what realistically is out there? It's like the housing we've just been sent down and, you know, we're going to do this, this, and this, and or they're going to, and they're going to mandate it. For example, if you want to put a heat pump in, it's going to cost you $120,000. Well, that's not making a house any more affordable. So adding $120,000 onto the guy that's going to buy the house. So I'm just wondering, is there an opportunity for us to put some input into what they're doing?
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, the studies have constant networking meetings with the province through the BC Step Code Council. Some of our staff have acted as like co-chairs of smaller technical groups. But there's a fair bit of communication with the Step Code Council on these matters.
The unfortunate part is we're ahead of most of the communities in Metro Vancouver, and that's a good thing. Okay, but Your Worship, so my question is, I'd like to see us just adopt where the province is and puts us ahead, quite frank with you, but we'll see what committee decides.
Well, that may be where we end up in a short period of time. But the motion calls for, you know, examination of what are the options, and then we can go from there.
It's amended.
We can always do that if we don't want to know the options. Councillor Liu.
Thank you. Question to staff. So while if you're building your home, you do have a choice as to whether you make it, I guess, airtight and put in sort of more passive house type things. And it seems to me, when we were looking at the Clayton Heights Community Center, it was going to be 10% more to build that. And, you know, I've been talking to some builders and they're saying it's at least 10%, possibly even 20% more to do this building to this level, especially once you put in that new HVAC system, everything else. So you can do that, or you could put in just electric baseboards. Is that correct, to heat your house?
Through the chair to Councillor
Lou.
Lou, thank you. Well, it has to be considered in the context of ongoing and other requirements. So our aircraft noise requirements in city center, for example, requires active cooling, and the market's moving towards cooling, as is the code. So I think, you know, maybe you know the exact timelines for that, but it's a better service to have the cooling and heating that would come from a heat pump versus electric resistance heating.
Okay. But if, like, I know my house, a few years ago, my hot water tank went and my heating system was getting old, that was going as well. So I put in the on-demand gas, and it seems to be pretty efficient, the whole thing. It doesn't seem to use that much. I seem to have low bills. I also have electric for various other things in my house, but at the end of the day, I have options. So when prices change, I can steer towards one side or the other depending upon what happens with prices. So if in the future we've prevented people from putting gas in their homes and they only have a heat pump that's run by electricity, they're still only using electricity, right? They're still beholden to BC Hydro. They don't have any other options. So now they're kind of stuck. Whereas anybody else who was built previously, they're already sort of grandfathered in this more, a bigger choice. They have the choice of what they're using, how they're heating. They can switch back and forth. They can change systems. They can do whatever. But they at least have the gas going into their house. So if they need to, they can heat their house during the winter. They can boil their water. They can do whatever they want. So I feel like it's overly limiting to people to not be able to heat their house the way that they want to sort it out the way they want. I understand what we're doing. I know that we're trying to push the edge of things, but I'm fearful of the extra cost that it's layering on because, you know, we did agree that it was at least 10% construction cost to build a house that reaches some of these levels, right?
Through the chair to Councillor Lou, we'd have to verify those numbers. We've heard these statistics before. When the STEPCO was initially launched, there was hundreds of variations of building decisions that you could make that were assessed. And on average, I think between each STEPCO is about 1% capital. But that doesn't account, for instance, some trade issues that you might be dealing with on the ground. But from a capital point of view, it was 1% on average. But certainly in the referral, we can look into that in more detail because there are numbers that are out there floating all the time and we can seek to find out what the real increments are.
Okay, and because then, you know, if you're already trying to plug in your Tesla and whatever else you're trying to do in your house and then heat it on top of that and everything else, like a variety of ways to get energy into your home seems to me to be better. Thanks.
Yes, I'll start off by saying, and you'll understand where I'm going to come from in my questions I have, is I don't think we should be at a step with the province on the step code here. And, you know, Councillor Lou's raised some important points, and I think we've got to be very cognizant of the industries that we're affecting right at the outset by going to this. And I use this metaphor to describe, I would like to be what Michael is on the environment and some of the other things, but I'm not there yet. Eventually, I will get to where he is, but I'm not there yet. And I draw the similarities on this. Yes, we're trying to move this along quickly. We want to be ahead of the province, but you know, I think it's unrealistic. We don't know what the timeline of the province, whether that will change with the province. So the questions I'm going to start out by asking is, where are we on BC Hydro to meet the demands if in fact we start implementing this or moving this far beyond what the province would like us to be at.
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, we do have an intention to bring BC Hydro to the table to answer these specific questions around their capability. So we're still working on that, hopefully in Q3 in the fall. What we hear and what we've heard when they've spoke to other cities, that they are able to achieve these outcomes. As it grows, the announcements of significant upgrades to the systems are not trivial. So to achieve that, there are some big costs for distribution, et cetera. So it's a complex change happening, but Hydro is best to speak to that. We're arranging that for them to come in.
And certainly that is something I think we need to be very, very aware of, because I think we brought this up previously, and I think that's why Hydro is coming forward, where we wanted to know where Hydro is on this, so we can have an understanding. I just feel that why this would go back to a referral to look at options, we already know what staff's position is on this and their recommendations are on this. We are now trying to address this in a way of complying with the province to make it more, in our opinion, or in my opinion, I'm going to say, more practical for people to accept what is going on. And I think we've got to bring us into step with the province, and certainly I would not be in favor of a referral. I'd be in favor of a position that we take with respect to abiding by the path that the province has laid out and their timeline.
Well, isn't that a very likely option that you're going to present? And we'll talk about the ramifications of that, plus other options that we may have?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. The intention of the referral response would be to recommend what we currently have, because we have no other direction, right. But we would lay out options on and implications for changes to the timeline and the notion and the issue of gas.
And if this gets, the motion is a referral motion, when would it be returnable, do you think? Can you bring it back right at the beginning of September?
Through the chair, that would be the goal. I think October might be more realistic, but that would be
September.
Well, yes, we'll do that, Mr. Chair.
Just voluntary.
Yeah.
It's like our amenity contributions, it's voluntary. Okay, Councillor, let's see now, Councillor Glanders.
Thanks. Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I'm supportive of a referral. And I hear all the discussion, and it makes sense about having concerns with there being only one way to heat the home. But we can't, you don't want to still be burning oil, and we don't want to be heating our homes with wood burning either. So, I mean, we have to move on from some things. I know in New Westminster, they have a City of New West district utility for all the houses are on the City of New West electricity. So I don't know how far away we would be from being able to do that with our geothermal, but hopefully there will be more options down the road. With the second part of the referral, clarify the role of natural gas for space heating and domestic hot water and provide options for council consideration. Could you include information in that that homeowners and builders, but particularly the homeowners and people, can see what the options are and what it's going to cost them? Like, when my furnace packs it in, it's 50 years old, like, what are my options for replacement? How much is it going to cost me? Because I've been hearing all sorts of numbers being thrown out for the last few months. I've been hearing $40,000 to upgrade the electrical, and now I just heard $120,000 for a heat pump, which I don't think is correct. I think it's probably more like 10 to 20, I don't know. But I would like to know what the options are. And if, like, let's say an existing home that has gas service was to build some small-scale multi-unit housing on the property, stratified or not, and build 3 more units, would they have to get rid of the gas altogether and only do electricity at that point of redevelopment? as it stands right now, or by what date would
Through the
that?
chair, staff can look at this.
Yeah, that
particular
type of stuff.
situation.
I think to just have it all laid out, and then we can look at that and then look at where we're at regarding where the province is at. And I have, yeah, that's it. Thanks.
If I could, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, to respond to one point you made when you started. So when a builder and a owner, or even a spec builder starts, they're working with an energy advisor. And that energy advisor, that's their role, is to work with the builder or the owner, or both, to put a program together that makes sense for the owner, the occupier, or the seller. So there's that. I just wanted to highlight that there is a key, I wouldn't say intervention point, but there's a key point in our requirements for these building types, that there's an energy advisor who works with the builder, helps them make choices, and then signs off on that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much, Mayor Brody. So you didn't really answer the question. If Laura's furnace goes tomorrow, can she put another gas furnace back in again?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, I believe you can, yes.
You believe, yes?
Yes,
Did you?
yes, you can. Yes, you can buy a furnace.
Through the chair, if I may. Yes, of course you can. In an existing home or building, there's no restrictions there on that. The step code, zero carbon step code, applies to new construction. So that, and all that stuff is settled at the energy modeling or energy advisor stage when you're just designing the home or building or office building, whatever it might be. For existing buildings, there's no restrictions there.
Yeah, I would add, and I'm reminded, and maybe Norm can speak to this a bit more, the province has been looking at efficiency levels of new equipment.
Yes.
And where it's going is more efficient than current natural gas systems. So it might, over time, start ruling out those, the expectation is over time that would rule out gas.
Okay, so when we approved these step codes, I was under the assumption that BC Hydro had enough juice for everybody, but they don't. I have, since we voted on that, I've had people accost me at curling on Thursday night going, why in the world did you do this to us? We can't get the 400 amp service that we need. And, you know, we have to build a house that's, you know, has electric chargers for cars and everything else. And I tell you, I've had heated debates trying to defend this policy. So I'm disappointed that we approve something that we can't follow through with, that BC Hydro has let down the people of Richmond. And when I hear from one builder, what he had to me, it was almost like blackmail money, that he had to pay extra to upgrade the system so he could get us 400 amp service. And if the actual grid system, nothing he owns. And that really bothered me. That's when I was talking to Councillor McNulty about his motion to just go with the BC code, I thought, yeah, until we get this fixed, maybe that's exactly where we should go. Because for me, there's just no rationale for going with something that can't be serviced. And so from my perspective, that's a big one. I also believe that Councillor Liu has a very good point. It's nice to have choices. You know, I have gas and electric in my house, and it gives me options. Because sometimes prices can spike for certain, whether it's electricity or gas. So I don't think choices are a bad thing. So I think it would be good to to go with what the aggressive policies that the BC government has come up with and accept the BC building guidelines as our standard. And then when everybody catches up, then we could look at potentially, you know, increasing our standards above the BC guidelines. So yeah, I would support a motion to just go with the BC guidelines, so get going on it right away. And let's fix this. It's not a going backwards, it's just going with what is required in the city, or sorry, in the province. So.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Your Worship. Staff have answered the main question I had, which was how do you interpret what this motion is asking you to do? And what I heard was that we'd get options on changes to the existing timelines when it comes to our energy step code and zero carbon step code. And also looking into the role of natural gas. Was one part of the rationale that I just want to read out, and then I'll explain why I'm opposed to this. It says that the use of gas, ... is a necessary option during the transition to clean renewable energy sources. I think it's not a necessary option. It's an existing condition. So if you already have it, then use it. But when it comes to new buildings, we should be implementing the way of the future. Sadly, there's aspects of life I want to be stuck in the past, but this is not one of them. I've used gas appliances, I've used electric, and I wouldn't be too sad to lose ever access to the gas again. I think having one less utility in new buildings will save costs and perhaps make them slightly more affordable. By having another less utility onto a property, we'll potentially save more trees, because we hear a lot about trees have to get removed because utilities have to be dug underneath them. And there's fire and health hazards, so why would we not rather have the reduced risk of that? So I'm not going to support this, because I think staff have already come to us many times, presented the timeline, and I appreciated that they wanted to take that leadership, that innovative step forward, giving builders the chance. If you're going to go to the next school or the next grade, you want to learn a little bit what's coming, and it gives developers a chance to get hands-on for the way it's coming in the future.
Councillor Isle.
So, Worship, I just want to follow up on the point being raised by Councillor Day. I think the thing is that we in Richmond, we also brag about ourselves as being a leader in many areas, especially in conservation and clean energy. But the thing is, yeah, we may set the standard high, we may want to go fast, but practicality is other conditions were not there. So I think perhaps, we need to be more cautious at this time instead of, pushing it forward and leaving a big hole behind us, which is not filled. I think rather, come back and see what options are there. It's not that we give up our goals or our vision, but, let practical issues be addressed before we can move forward. And I also feel that, yes, we can direct staff right away to do, comply or go along with the provincial guideline or standard. But again, I want to have a good process in which, we've got staff come back to us with options and give us some clarification of the data that we also mentioned about. So I would support the referral that we got another report from staff, and then we can make a decision by then.
To me, staff's comments have indicated how complicated this situation is and how many options there are. And it's the juxtaposition between what the city is doing and what the province is mandating and all that. I'm not necessarily against just going along with what the province is mandating and saying, okay, don't get ahead of that. I'm not there at all. I just want to see what the options are. And I want to see the options. I want to have the information so that I can make my decision as to whether this is a way to go, not just say, yeah, I know what the option is and this is what it should be. So I will be supporting this motion. So Andy, to wrap it up.
Yeah, and thanks, and through the chair. I'll just wrap up by just reading the rationale. I know we all have it, but some people listening might not have it. So, and it's been mentioned by Councillor Wolf as well. So the BC Energy Step Code is an incremental process to achieve the highest new building performance by 2032. The Zero Carbon Step Code is an incremental process requiring new buildings to achieve the most stringent greenhouse emission limits by 2030. BC Hydro's electricity generation provides just 19% of BC's total energy requirements. Additional forms of renewable energy are required to transition from fossil fuels to achieve the province's net zero goals by 2050. The use of gas for water and space heating and single detached and duplex residential buildings is a necessary option during the transition to clean, renewable energy sources. And I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
All right. Okay, let's call the question on the motion on the floor. All those in favor? Those opposed? It's carried with Councillors Wolf, Day, McNulty opposed. Oh, Heed, you didn't have your hand up there. But anyway, it's still carried. Okay, there you go. Now we go to Hugh Boyd Community Facility and Fieldhouse Referral Response. Martin Youngs, Mandy Baines, anything to add to your report?
To the chair, we have nothing to add. We're happy to answer any questions.
Well, let me start off by saying, well, I've got a question. What's the difference between a standard movable wall and a premium movable wall?
To the chair, the sound mitigation on the elevated one has a higher SAC, about 60. So the transfer of noise is much less on the premium. On the standard one is similar to the one that we have here at City Hall downstairs.
Okay, I'll just say where I'm coming from. I think we should go with a limited service kitchen, so more than a servery, but less than the deluxe option. And I think it's worth it to go for the premium movable wall. I think a movable wall is a good idea, and the more sound attenuation that we can have, the better. That's where I'm coming from. So we'll go to councillors' comments. Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question is about that limited service kitchen, option 2, that was just mentioned. In the description there, it says that there can be minimal grease-laden cooking, so no deep frying. So for this all to be a passive house standard, would that mean that option 2, limited service kitchen, is all electric appliances?
Through the chair to Councilor Roth, that is correct.
Thank you.
Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thanks very much, and thanks very much for the memo and the promptness of which you sent it back. I thought it was very thorough in what you had. I have to agree with His Worship's comments. This is a community building, and the community is forgotten in here, and by having a movable wall and adequate space for the community, and we're satisfied. When I look at the building committee, soccer is well looked after. They got the whole ground floor. They got the balcony. They got the view. They got everything. But the community has nothing. And I think we've got to do it. And the community center is not the only community booth there if we want to have some future programming and stuff. So I think this would solidify what I'm hearing out in the community. Just out of curiosity, the movable wall, you said, is $150,000 to $250,000 approximately, which I think is money well invested for 2050. What does it cost just to build the solid wall? What would it cost to build that wall across to separate it? Because I'd like to know what the difference is. And if you says whatever, if I may.
Through the chair to Councilor McNulty, under the options, you will see a table that highlights the cost. It would be about $250,000 versus, as you can see, $850,000.
So the wall itself is $850,000?
Including the appliances, yes.
The solid wall? Sorry, I can't. On the kitchen, I have no problem, but the wall, if you're building the wall, the construction, build a solid wall across with doors, et cetera, is going to have some cost, 20, 30, 40, 50,000?
Through the chair to Councilor McNulty, it would be in that range between 50 and 100,000, yes.
Yeah, okay, so take that away from 150 to 200,000. The net cost, I'm looking at the net cost at the end.
Just to clarify through the chair to Councilor McNulty, the 150 and the 250 are premium on top of the cost of the wall.
Okay.
So it's not actually deduction from the cost of the wall, it is the premium on top of the solid wall that we have included in the 19 million.
Okay, so, Your Worship, you were recommending 2C. Yeah, I would agree with that and support that. And I think the community at large would support that from those that I've heard. And the soccer is well looked after. They've got everything that they've asked for. And because when I look at the building committee, it was all soccer people. There was nobody really from the community at large on that committee. So thank you.
Councillor Heat.
Yes, quickly, remembering this is a 19 million plus initiative that we've got in place. So I think we've got to do it right from the outset so there's no other costs that may come up. The limited service, now, I just want to be clear on that. When we talk about that, for example, catering events, that would be a servery that would allow caterers to warm up the food and various things like that. Is that what we're talking about when we talk about limited service kitchen?
Through the chair to Councillor Heat, no. The servery that you're talking about is similar to the one in the multipurpose room at Minaru. It's a limited service kitchen is a kitchen that has a small stove, like a home stove, and you can heat and use it as well. It's limited cooking is allowed. In the servery, there is no cooking allowed.
So I'm sensing, with your experience around this, I don't know these serveries, that if we were renting out this space to someone that was going to hold a wedding reception, not a wedding, a wedding reception, no, not me. Again, I made that mistake once. Oops, did I say that out loud? So the catering that would be required, what would they need in order for them to cater to that function?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, are you referring to the limited service kitchen and how that would support catered events?
What type of kitchen or what type of facility would you need for the caterer to?
It would depend on how the caterer is supporting the function. So certainly caterer can prepare the food off-site and bring it on-site. And in that case, a server could also support that in terms of it has appliances that could be used to heat up different things. But you could also bring on-site temporary equipment that could support that type of off-site catered food brought on-site to be served.
Great, thank you. And absolutely agree with the mayor here on the premium and the Councillor McNulty, premium movable wall. That absolutely is the way to go. We've been to receptions where they've got this in the banquet halls and there's loud music going on one side and the other side, they're not interfering with one another. So I definitely would be supporting the limited service and the premium movable wall.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the limited service makes some sense. People can heat things up and do some various things. I don't know that we're going to have that many people doing that many things in this space. I think if you get married at Minaru, you just walk over to the executive airport, they'll put on a nice banquet for you, your life will be good. I think what we do need to think about is it talks about meeting passive house criteria. And I know when we visited the Clayton Heights, they had some issues with some of their workout spaces being able to actually work properly because they get too hot because everyone's working out in them. So if, we've got people doing their Zumba class upstairs or whatever we end up utilizing that space for, are we going to be able to cool it just in the passive house way, or are we going to have to crank open windows and do other things, which then kills your whole passive house thing? So can we go towards passive house and control the space and cooling appropriately?
Through the chair to Councillor Lowe, we are pretty confident we can achieve passive house with a limited service kitchen. The ventilation requirements for it are residential, and it's not very extensive. So we can accommodate, if it was a full service kitchen, then passive house would not be achievable.
Okay, but forgetting about the kitchen for a minute, just like if we have a bunch of people working out in that space, is it going to be able to be manageable with the passive house system?
Through the chair to Councillor Lowe, yes, it will.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mayor Brody. So option one, a food servery, is a service counter and includes sink, fridge, freezer, counter space for small appliances, and you can have countertop appliances. When I got married, we had the wedding reception at Lansdowne Mall. It was just a hall. And the caterers bring all the food already done. They're not interested in cooking. And all they need is a way to keep everything warm. You could do that with a food servery. It's not necessary to have a limited kitchen. And if a soccer team or whatever wants to cook food, I mean, they could be cooking hamburgers, hot dogs, and the things that kids like without a full kitchen. in their minutes of the building committee workshop, they talk about concession, and they say it would be beneficial to have food warming concession. And they said it would be beneficial to have a covered space for barbecue and a place to store it. Will there, on that big deck, be a covered space for a barbecue?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, the patio is covered, the deck is covered, and certainly we did discuss a space for the barbecue, which we will, through detailed design, determine the best place for that.
Yeah, so for the kind of food that's going to be served, whether it's a wedding, they bring everything in these big styrofoam containers. It stays hot for hours, and all they really need is something like a sauce needs to be heated up is a microwave. So we don't really need a limited kitchen. I think we should go with 1C, which is to build a servery and a premium movable wall.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I think that one scenario where you're using a caterer than a servery is fine, but I have used our community facilities and used the kitchen more times than I could possibly count cooking food for large dinners for people. And when we're putting on tournaments for lacrosse, we use the kitchen to make food for all the referees. To come up and the home teams in between and this and that. And I mean, sure, we can just order pizzas, but there are absolutely a lot of uses for a limited service kitchen. I do think that's a good option. I'm a little bit hesitant on the cost and just the size. I mean, I think my kitchen at home is probably only 150 feet and we do a lot of meals. So I do 150 square feet, so 455 square feet. You know, it's nice, it's really nice. It's over 20 by 20, but I'm curious, where is the square footage coming from?
Through the chair to Councillor Gillanders, looking at the function of the space and the amount or the occupancy for the building itself and the functions, that is the size that the consultants had recommended for us to pursue.
Just to add a stove, essentially.
Through the chair to Councillor Gillanders, it's not only a stove, there's a number of items that we have to add to this that evolve from a servery, so that's why the additional space is required.
But, so where is the square footage coming from? Like, where are you getting it from? Are you making the whole building bigger? Are you making another room smaller?
Through the chair to Councillor Gillanders, this would mean that the size of the building would increase. Because we are not impacting the program spaces, we'll be adding to the program space. So instead of 10,510, we would increase it by the additional, depending on the option that you choose.
So is it just the top floor that would be getting a little bit larger, or do you have to do bigger concrete footings?
Through the chair to Councillor Gillanders, we would have to work with our consultants during detailed design to actually see where that is, but the kitchen will be at that size and the program spaces will not be impacted. So yes, most likely the second floor will be larger.
Okay. And do you know offhand, are you familiar at all with the kitchen on the second floor of Minute Arena that is used in the office there for tournaments? Do you know how big it is and how it might compare to that one? That's one question I should have asked earlier today, so sorry for that one. Just one more question regarding the Passive House standard. And forgive me, I'm not that familiar with it, so does this mean like any building that we would ever want to do, we wouldn't want to put in a full kitchen because we might not get Passive House standards? Like, we have to obviously build kitchens sometimes. So what's the difference and why are we doing it for this?
Through the chair to Councillor Gillanders, the ventilation requirements for a commercial kitchen in this kind of facility would be cost prohibitive and very challenging to achieve Passive House because of the size of the building. There are places that have certified to Passive House, but they separate the commercial kitchen and consider it by itself, and the whole ventilation system is separated from the building. If we were to do that, we would have to go to more extensive work on it.
Okay, I see. Thanks.
Thanks, and through the chair, thanks for the report and the update. You know, when we first got the report, I thought a servery would be fine, but since then I have talked to a few people in the community, and they are looking forward to actually having a kitchen facility in there. And I have done the team cooking in the Stevenson Community Center for Swim Club when you do the carbo loading and pasta night. So it is a lot of work, and you do need the room. So they are looking forward to that. So I've changed my mind on that, actually. And I do support number 2 on that one. And I think the movable wall isn't something that I clicked on right away, but I think it was a good suggestion, and I think the premium wall makes sense in a number of ways. So I'll be supporting the recommended option.
Councillor Rob?
Yes, I just want to get a clarification here. Now, for option 1, the food safari is 155 square feet, and for the limited service kitchen is 455 square feet. So you are talking about, we are building bigger. So that means the whole area would be about 200 square feet more than the original design.
Through the chair to Councillor Au, 320 square foot more, yes.
Okay, so would the table, you mentioned the cost including equipment, 150. Does it include the building cost?
Through the chair to Councillor Au, yes, it does. It includes the additional area and the equipment.
Okay, good. So no extra building costs add to this?
No, there isn't.
Okay, good, thank you.
All right, does someone want to move 2C?
Kitchen with a premium movable wall.
Yeah, and the rest of that, talking about the,
Rest of the motion as is.
so we're
Just-
revising the capital budget and the 5-year plan. All right, okay, so that's, no, I second it, really. Okay, that's on the floor. All those in favor? Any opposed? Cash? No, I don't see your hand. I just double checking.
Actually kept it down.
There you go, it's carried. Someone want to move adjournment? Okay, we're now adjourned. I'll close the closed meeting to order. May I have a motion on